There were actually a couple of times that she would go days without sleep. She ended up getting really pale and depressed too, and my dad started to take her a little more seriously at this point. But my mum has been a Catholic her whole life, so my dad decided to buy her a small cross that she could put under her pillow, thinking that it would stop this thing, but of course it didn't. If anything, it actually made things worse. Pretty soon, my little sister started having bad dreams too. She doesn't remember them now because she was 3, but my mum says that my sister would tell her that baby scared her at night, and she didn't want to sleep anymore either. And that's when my dad finally took my mum seriously and took her to see a priest. The priest told her that somebody may have had an abortion in that bathroom, and he gave them holy water and told them to throw it around the apartment. They did, but it also didn't work. After a few more days of bad dreams, my dad saw no other option but to just move apartments, so we did, and just like that, my mum and sister's bad dreams just stopped. Is that a coincidence? I don't know, but my mum still doesn't like to talk about it. She gets really creeped out whenever somebody brings it up. And so, to be honest, I believe her. This happened about 6 years ago. I was working at a tanning salon on the south side of Chicago, and on Mondays, the salon side was closed, so I was used to just being there and being the only employee working at the front desk to let tanners in. Now, it isn't the best neighborhood, but I was used to it by this point because I had worked there for a few years, and I knew that there were homeless people and prostitutes that walked the street. Also, in the alley behind the building, many homeless guys' bodies had been found there. So I'm a female, blonde, 5'2", and small stature, but had always been not the one to be afraid of confrontation. I'd been used to it at this point and never had a huge problem really, and I'm a daughter of a frontline Marine in the Vietnam War and knew to just never show fear. I had my fair share of bums coming in when the weather was bad too, and I would just stand up behind the counter and tell them to get out, or if you're not tanning, then you need to fucking leave. But for some reason, my tone usually made them immediately take off. There were a few homeless men too that I'd see in front of the building that I would let take out cigarette butts out of our cigarette disposal bin. I mean, hell, that was less work for me to do anyway, so why not? I wouldn't tell them to leave, though I was supposed to, unless a customer was coming in or out of the building. But there was one Monday, though, that I was the only employee and there were a few clients tanning. During this time, I was behind the desk and was just clicking through Facebook and stuff. A few minutes went by and I felt something that I'd never felt before. Just an overwhelming feeling of fear, and I actually started trembling. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but then I looked up and at the desk in front of me, in front of what was the front doors, you're able to see clients come in and out. And holy fuck, there was a man almost taller than the door frame, face pressed against the door glass, just staring at me. When we locked eyes, I noticed his eyes were kind of dead, if that's the right word. There was just no expression on him, and he was just staring at me. I grabbed the phone and stood up and walked around the desk where I had to literally lock the door as he was pressed against it. He then started banging on the door and jiggling the handle and all that, and I knew right then that he was not a customer and not someone that I wanted in here with me. So I walked to the other side of the spa and shut the door and called my sister because I knew something wasn't right. This man just wasn't right. As I'm on the other side, I hear the front door open and I'm now in tears, not knowing what's about to happen, and someone comes into the salon side that I was on, and it was completely dark and I'm just trying to hide, and I see a male figure walking my way, and I thought, oh shit, this is it, isn't it? But it was one of the male tanners that started asking if I was okay. I started crying at this point, which is really unlike me, and he said, it's okay, I'll call the police, and when I went to leave, He barged in saying, "Where is she? Where's that girl? Where's the girl that I saw at the desk?" The male tanner, which was my saving grace that day, said to the guy that she's obviously busy and to get out of here. And then he ran off. I thanked the man and cried and hugged him, and even though he knew something wasn't right with this man, he made sure that I was okay.
I had just finished my last year of high school and I was 3 months shy of my 18th birthday. I lived about an hour north of Toronto, Canada. It was the suburbs, but we had a giant rural area with amazing nature trails and wildlife. I can't lie, life was pretty amazing. I was ready to go to college in a few months, and I had amazing friends and family. My best friends were a girl named Sam and her boyfriend Gavin, whom I introduced to. We did everything together, and I didn't really mind third-wheeling with them since we were all so close. I never imagined that a single moment could affect my life so much, that everything could just fall apart like that. The last time all three of us were together was on a beautiful summer night. It was just perfect weather and the moon was out. It was around 9 p.m. and we all decided to get together and have a fire, drink, listen to music, and pretty much just chill. We walked to the rural area to have our little fiesta. The walk there is a dead-end road that leads up to this forest area. There's no lights, just the sound of nature, crickets, and whatnot. It's about a 50-minute walk from the nearest home. We see the opening to the forest, turn on our flashlight, and start walking towards the clearing about 1 kilometer in. Only one of us had a cell phone, as it still wasn't common to have one back then. Sam had it, and it was a shitty old BlackBerry that was only to be used for emergencies. So we finally got to our little spot, threw our wood in, and got the music going. It was one of those movie moments. Fire and beer really make people come together. We were laughing, joking around, and shotgunning beers. I started feeling the buzz and felt my body just getting disoriented. I looked up and away from the fire, and from the corner of my eye, I thought I saw headlights. I shushed them and told them to look, but it was gone. They told me it was just the moonlight playing tricks on me, but I had this weird feeling and anxiety in my chest that I'd never felt before. And now I know it was my intuition. I kinda just put my fear aside and continued to party and get drunk. Gavin had drunk the last beer and we agreed it was time for bed. So we put out the fire, turned on the flashlight, and started following the trail back to the road. When we were out of the brush and into the open road, a pair of car headlights turned on, blinding us. I was so confused and out of it, but I knew something was about to go down. The person in the car turned on the engine and started speeding towards us, almost hitting us, but kept going. We were screaming "what the fuck" to this guy as he disappeared down the road. We thought that was it, some douchebag just fucking with us for shits and giggles. I didn't bring up the forest headlight thing because I didn't want to freak them out any more than they already were. We continued on our journey home. About 3 minutes later, the car speeds past us again, the flash of the headlights blinding us. This is when the alarm bells start ringing in my head and the adrenaline starts pumping. We froze and looked at each other. Sam was crying now, and Gavin had this petrified look on his face that I will never ever forget. I told Sam to call 911 on her phone, and she dug into her pockets and couldn't find it. We flashed the light on the ground looking, but she must have forgot it at the clearing. We were fucked. The car flew by us again, and we started to run the opposite way. I looked behind me and I could see it slowing down. It stopped about 100 meters from us. The loud honk of the car horn broke the silence. It kept going and going, beeping and flashing his lights. This was fucked up. My adrenaline was insane and I started sprinting through the forest. branches and things hitting me as I ran blindly in the dark. I fell over a log and twisted my ankle. I sucked in my breath from the pain and just laid there. I could see Sam's flashlight moving. She was running. I could hear Gavin yelling for her to run faster. She was smart and turned off the light and they hid. It was so silent I couldn't take it. I covered my mouth so my breathing could become steady. The headlights started shining in through the trees. I could make out that it was a tall man getting out of the car. He had a hunting rifle in his hand. I was praying to God now silently in my head that he wouldn't find us. He also had a flashlight on the rifle and he started walking towards me. I thought I was done for. The light moved a few inches from my head and he almost walked over me. I heard a branch break from where my friends were. I slowly moved my head and watched in horror as the man pointed the gun at my friends' heads. I kept quiet, knowing that if something did happen, I would be the last one left to get help. He started yelling at Sam to get in the car. They were both crying hysterically. The man opened the trunk of his car and threw Sam into it. Gavin was now kneeling on the ground beside the car. The man violently started gun-butting him in the face. I can still hear the cracks of the gun hitting him to this day. I could see him laying there completely still. Is he dead? I thought. The car peeled off towards the city. I ran up to Gavin and he was completely covered in blood and had a disgusting gash in his face. He was knocked out. I knew I wasn't strong enough to carry him to the nearest home to get help. I started yelling his name to try and wake him up, but nothing worked. I propped him up against the tree and covered him up as best as I could. I started running. It was all a blur. I don't even remember what I was thinking while I ran. I was so focused on getting help. I saw a house and started screaming and banging on the door. The lights turned on and a woman opened her window and asked me what was wrong. I yelled to her to call 911. The police got there pretty quick. I told them where my friend was and that he was severely injured in the description of the car that had taken my friend. I sat down and everything overwhelmed me. The emotions of what had just happened came over me. I was crying, shaking, and throwing up. My parents came and picked me up from the station after a few hours of questions. I was so happy to see them. We went home and I just laid there beside my mom. The next day, I found out that they had found Sam in the trunk of that car, abandoned in a parking lot at the lake. She was alive, but something had obviously happened to her. Gavin was in the hospital with severe head trauma. They had to protect our names in the media since we were under 18. It was a big news story in our little town. A wake-up call that maybe the suburbs aren't so safe after all. Life was flipped upside down for all of us. Our friendship forever broken. I saw Gavin in the hospital when he woke up and brought him flowers, but we didn't speak about what had happened. Sam's family moved and we never really spoke again. I tried to search for her on Facebook, but nothing comes up. Gavin and I still don't really know what happened to her, but it makes me sick to my stomach thinking about it. I didn't end up going to college and had to go through some serious therapy to start feeling like myself again. I hope I'll get there one day soon. I don't go out much at all, never at night. The person who ruined our teenage dreams never faced justice. The case still remains open. First, a little background information. I worked the night shift at a local gas station when I was 19. I'm a female, about 5'6", and was the only employee in the store, as usual. On Christmas Eve, I had to work the overnight, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. into Christmas Day. It was a normal night, no customers, and my cleaning was almost finished. I had just got done eating and decided to go out for a smoke when I hear someone walking towards the store in the distance. Now, this was nothing out of the ordinary until the person gets to the pumps and I can actually see them. It was a male, about 5'9" and somewhat thin. He was wearing a dark hoodie, jeans, and was carrying a gift bag. As he got closer though, I noticed that he was bleeding from his forehead. As he approached me, I asked if he was okay and if he needed any help. I noticed that the bag was empty, which should have been my first red flag. The guy looked me in the eyes, looking dead inside, and said, "You wanna help? Then don't call the fucking cops." I agreed and told him that there was a first aid kit inside and that I'd be happy to help him with his wound. Crazy, I know, but I was just trying to be nice to him since he was someone who could be a threat to me. We went inside the store and I got the first aid kit. As I pulled out the stuff for him to clean himself up with, he said he needed to use the restroom and once again told me not to call the cops. I told myself that if he wasn't out of the bathroom within a reasonable amount of time, I was going to call the police. He didn't come out, so I went outside and called. The dispatcher told me to stay out of the store and find somewhere safe to be until the officers arrived. I stood at the side of the store where he wouldn't be able to see me, but I could see if he came out of the bathroom. He never came out. The police arrived and asked me where he was. I pointed and they went in. Just as they got to the door, he opened it and tried to lunge at one of the officers. They tackled him, threw a knife that he was holding, and promptly arrested him. As they were walking him out of the store, he told me that I was lucky that the police got there when they did, and that he'd see me again soon. I was a little shook by that. One of the officers came to take my statement after the other took the guy away. I told the officer what had all happened, and then I asked something I really wish I didn't know the answer to. What was he doing in the bathroom? The officer told me that it was a good thing that I called when I did, because the guy had shot up some heroin in the bathroom, then was going to come out with a knife, stab me, and run with what money was in the register. That's what the bag was for. This guy had a lot of problems and a lot of anger inside of him. The reason he was so angry was also the reason his head was bleeding. He owed his dealer money and got beat because of it. His solution to the problem was robbing the store. The officer told me if I didn't call when I did, I'd either be critically wounded or dead because he wasn't going to allow me to stand between him and that money. I hope I never see that crazy drug addict who wanted to kill me to